The relevance of Orwell. We live in an age where equality rhetoric mixes with control, where truth no longer matters. Only the most convenient narrative does. And the scariest part, this isn't new. George Orwell saw all of this coming and wrote, disguised as a fable, one of the darkest warnings in modern history. Animal Farm, a tale of animals that begins with hope and ends with tyranny. Orwell wasn't just talking about past totalitarian regimes. He's talking about today, about me, about you. Because once you understand what's really happening in this story, you start to see the same patterns everywhere. On social media, in political promises, in power dynamics. And perhaps the most unsettling question is, are we living out Orwell's fable without even realizing it? The vision of a modern prophet. George Orwell, the pen name of Eric Arthur Blair, was more than a writer. He was a modern prophet of language and power. Born in 1903, Orwell witnessed the horrors of 20th century totalitarianism. He fought in the Spanish Civil War, saw firsthand the manipulation of the masses, historical revisionism, and the perversion of language by politics. His goal was simple, yet brutal, to expose the truth, no matter the cost. In his words, the object of political propaganda is to make a lie sound truthful. In 1984, he creates Doublethink, where two contradictory truths coexist. Exactly what we see today, with fake news, the post-truth era, and polarization that destroys dialogue. In Animal Farm, 1945, Orwell delivers a ferocious critique of totalitarianism disguised as a children's story, a fable where animals take control of the farm to create a new world, only to watch it all turn into something far worse. That's why his works don't age. They aren't just criticisms of past regimes. They are warning manuals about human behavior, about how power corrupts, and how the truth can be rewritten right before our eyes. The start of the revolution and the downfall. It all starts with a dream, freedom. On the decaying manor farm, the animals live under the cruel rule of Mr. Jones, an alcoholic, negligent man whose only consistency is his neglect. They are mistreated, malnourished, and live without purpose. One night, an old, respected pig named Old Major gathers everyone in the barn. He shares a powerful vision, a society where animals would be free, equal, and self-governing. With fiery words and a revolutionary anthem, Beasts of England, he plants a seed, the idea of a world without chains, without whips, without humans. A few days later he dies, but his words are not forgotten. Inspired by his legacy, the animals rebel, seize the farm, and drive out Jones. The revolution triumphs. The farm is renamed Animal Farm, and the 7 commandments of animalism are painted on the barn wall. The most important one, all animals are equal. Leadership falls to the pigs, considered the most intelligent. 2 stand out, Snowball, the idealist and visionary, and Napoleon, reserved but cunning and calculated. The rise of the tyrant. Snowball proposes building a windmill. He promises electricity, heating, running water, less work, and more dignity. Napoleon opposes it, calling it a fantasy, a waste of time. Their rivalry comes to a head. Just as Snowball is about to win a leadership vote, Napoleon unleashes 9 fierce dogs, secretly trained since they were puppies. They attack Snowball, who flees the farm, never to be seen again. From that moment, Napoleon assumes absolute control and decides to build the windmill as if it were his own idea, but not for progress. He uses the project to keep the animals busy, exhausted, with no time or energy to question. When the windmill collapses the first time due to a storm, Napoleon blames Snowball for sabotage, even without proof. This strengthens his image as a protector and fuels hatred toward an absent enemy. Thus, the windmill project becomes a political weapon, a cycle of effort, frustration, and fear. Exactly what keeps control in the hands of tyrants. With every authoritarian decision, Napoleon uses Squealer, a manipulative pig, to justify absurdities with empty yet convincing speeches. The rewriting of truth. Little by little, the commandments of the revolution written on the wall begin to change subtly. No animal shall kill any other animal turns into no animal shall kill any other animal without cause. all animals are equal turns into all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. The pigs move into the farmhouse, wear clothes, drink alcohol, and walk on two legs. Meanwhile, the other animals, especially the horse boxer, a symbol of the working force, continue to believe. Even in the face of hunger, injustice, and fear, he repeats, "Napoleon is always right. I will work harder." And when Boxer falls ill, he is not rewarded. He is sold to the slaughterhouse for profit. The pigs lie, saying he was taken to the hospital, and everyone believes it. The farm, once a hope for equality, transforms into an even more oppressive system, but now sustained by internal manipulation and not by an external enemy. The weapon of ignorance. One of the darkest aspects of the fable is ignorance. In the beginning, the pigs learn to read and write. To the others, they offer simplified slogans like, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, but soon even that is lost. The animals forget, get confused, surrender to repetition without questioning, without reflecting. This is Orwell's sharp critique of the abandonment of critical education. The most ignorant animals are the most easily manipulated. Without vocabulary, without memory, without consciousness, they accept any lie, any slogan, any official truth. And this isn't just a problem in fiction, it's a portrait of the real world. In authoritarian regimes, and even in fragile democracies, investment in critical education is deliberately ignored. The less you understand, the less you question. The more distracted you are, the more obedient. The absence of formal and philosophical education is not a system failure, it's part of the system. A people who don't think don't rebel, they only repeat. That's why, on Animal Farm, the pigs don't just take power, they take knowledge. And when knowledge becomes a monopoly, the truth dies. The mirror and the warning. The great irony of the story is cruel and current. The revolution born of hope becomes oppression. Napoleon embodies the political elite who, once in power, rewrite the rules to ensure they never leave. He eliminates rivals, distorts facts, and turns ignorance into a tool of control. It's a mirror of totalitarian regimes, like Stalinism, Orwell's inspiration. But it's also a universal pattern. A common enemy is created. Power is centralized to protect the people, and then it becomes impossible to distinguish the liberator from the tyrant. Napoleon relies on Squealer, the propagandist pig who rewrites history, justifies absurdities, and masks the truth. This sounds familiar. Today, social media, algorithms, and political speeches operate in the same way. They create narratives, silence contradictions, and repeat lies until they sound like truth, and ignorance remains the gear. Animals who don't read, don't think, don't remember, accept, just like many of us. How many times have you accepted a narrative just because everyone was repeating it? How many times did you ignore the absurdity because it was easier that way? Every animal in the story represents more than just a figure. It represents a human behavior. Squealer, state propaganda, now reincarnated in algorithms. Boxer, the blind worker who believes until the end and is discarded. The sheep, the masses who repeat slogans without thinking. The dogs, the violent and obedient police force. And perhaps the most tragic is Boxer, loyal, hardworking, yet incapable of questioning. His phrase, "I will work harder," is the very response that keeps tyranny alive. At the heart of the fable are themes that transcend eras. Power corrupts, even those who start with good intentions. Manipulation of truth. History is rewritten by the winners. Alienation. Ignorance isn't innocence. It's fuel for tyranny. Equality as an illusion. There will always be those who take advantage. And perhaps the most unsettling. When you stop thinking, you start being controlled. We live in the age of post-truth. It doesn't matter what is real, but rather what looks convincing. Just as the animals believe Squealer, today we believe the algorithms. We live in information bubbles, surrounded by cliches, manufactured outrage, and unfounded beliefs. And inequality continues to be disguised, justified, and normalized. Leaders promise equality, justice, and a future, but often only build new, more subtle, and harder to identify forms of oppression. Orwell didn't just write about the Soviet Union. He wrote about the human being, about the desire to control and the fear of thinking. And the question that echoes to this day is, how many of us are living like Boxer, working, obeying, and waiting for someone to tell us what to think? Animal Farm is a fable, but it is also a mirror, a warning, a scream. It shows that tyranny doesn't start with tanks. It starts with words, with promises, with our distraction. At the end of the story, the pigs become identical to the humans, and the other animals can no longer tell the difference between them. This is symbolic, but it is also real. Because when we give up thinking, someone else thinks for us. And that someone usually doesn't have our best interests in mind. The question is, are we awake, or are we just obeying? If this deep dive into power and control resonated with you, hit the subscribe button for Lovecraftian psychology and share this video. Your vigilance is the first step against the pigs.